He Yuzhu crossed through the animal quadrangle and became He Yuzhu, bound to the system of bird abuse and counterattack. He was not foolish anymore. The three elders in the quadrangle were repeatedly exhausted, and the vampire widow Qin Huairu suffered the consequences. The evil mother-in-law Jia Zhang was punished, and the real villain Xu Damao was bullied. He Yuzhu thrived in the steel rolling mill and became the richest man in the quadrangle. Chapter 1. Binding the Tragedy Bird Counterattack System. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. It is easy to be in the middle of the sea with a fair appearance, official fans addicted to bangs, skilled in calculation, Yan Bugue, White Lotus and Green Tea, Widow Qin, what a villain Xu Damao, thief expert Jia Zhang, summoning evil lady Jia Zhang, what a beast. This is really just a group of vampires. Watching the TV plot fill the courtyard, with selfish and oily faces, He Yuzhu was so angry that he almost dropped the remote control. Except for the honest person with the same name and surname as himself, He Yuzhu. There is hardly any good person in the entire drama. It is said that the three views follow the five senses, but this time the five senses are distorted and the three views are completely destroyed. He Yuzhu's roast is not over. Suddenly, his eyes darkened and he crossed over to the male lead He Yuzhu in this drama. His mood at this moment is extremely complex. As a good young man in the new era of society, he had long wanted to criticize these beasts of clothing as he watched the entire courtyard devour people without spitting out bones. Now that I have traveled through time and become a member of this animal courtyard, it will definitely leave them all unable to bear it. He Yuzhu just put the chicken in the lunch box on the coal stove to stew. Xu Damao suddenly lifted the curtain and quietly rushed in. Silly pillar, where did the chicken in your pot come from? Smelling the occasional fragrance wafting out of the pot, Xu Damao stared at the pot on the coal stove with hostile eyes, gritting his teeth and asking. Just as He Yuzhu was about to open his mouth, a pleasant electronic sound suddenly rang out in his head. Ding! The avian abuse counterattack system has discovered the host and is currently binding. Binding successful. Host. He Yuzhu system. Bird abuse counterattack system. Get a beginner gift pack. A watch ticket. 1 bicycle ticket. A sewing plane ticket. 1 radio ticket. 20 pieces of great unity. Open the beginner gift pack and casually scan the rewards in the system. He Yuzhu's heart was filled with joy. In that era of material scarcity, these tickets were just a delicacy. Without relevant ticket matching, even with money, one cannot buy anything. 3 turns and 1 sound, watch, sewing machine, bicycle, radio, luxury 4 major items. At that time, when getting married, if we could come up with these 4 things, we could definitely marry a beautiful wife and go home, so beautiful that we didn't want to. Cool, it's really amazing. The system God assisted, perhaps even the heavens couldn't bear to see it, so they specifically sent me to punish the vampire beasts in the courtyard. He Yuzhu stood with his hands in his pockets, leaning against the table. I lowered my head and stared at the lazy shoes with a light wick velvet surface on my feet, with a faint smile on my face. Xu Damao, you have a pretty sharp nose. You smell the smell and come here. Why do you want to eat chicken? I don't have your share. Hurry up and get out of here. He Yuzhu and Xu Damao are sworn enemies on weekdays and often fight back. So when he saw Xu Damao, He Yuzhu never had a good expression. Silly Zhu, I just lost a chicken today, and you stewed a chicken in your pot. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? Xu Damao swallowed his saliva and said angrily. Living in the same courtyard, the two of them had a loud voice that had already alarmed the people in the courtyard. At this moment, the second uncle walked in with a few people from the yard. What are you two shouting about? The second uncle lifted the curtain and asked with a frown. Xu Damao was worried about having nowhere to reason. When he saw someone coming, he immediately took 2 steps forward and said angrily, Second master, you came just in time. You came to judge me. I just lost a chicken, and a chicken was stewed in a silly pot. What do you think is going on? The second uncle carried his hands behind his back and glanced at the pot on the stove with a pair of turbid eyes. He then walked back and forth in the room and said, "This matter, I think we need to hold a general meeting of the whole court to resolve it." After speaking, the second uncle slowly walked out of the house under the gaze of a few people. "Xu Damao, don't falsely accuse me. Open your dog's eyes and see clearly. This is the chicken I bought, not your old hen. It's a big rooster." The lid of the pot was lifted, and He Yuzhu stirred it a few times with chopsticks in the pot. The chicken's head flipped out from the bottom of the pot, and a large chicken crest appeared in front of him. Xu Damao was instantly speechless. Who exactly stole his chicken? Ding, trigger system task. Prevent Xu Damao from falsely accusing and have him compensate for the losses. Completing the task will earn 20 kilograms of grain and 20 kilograms of meat coupons. After seeing the chicken in the pot clearly, Xu Damao raised his foot and wanted to walk out. He Yuzhu suddenly stood in front of him and smiled slightly. "Xu Damao, you falsely accused me of stealing your chicken and wanted to leave like this. Do you really think I'm easy to bully?" Xu Damao hesitated slightly and said, "So what do you want?" "The second master is going to hold a general meeting of the entire court. What do you think I want? If someone falsely accuses someone without reason and causes harm, the victim has the right to demand cessation of infringement, restoration of reputation, elimination of influence, apology, and compensation for losses." He Yuzhu said very seriously. "Apologize and compensate for the loss." Upon hearing these words, Xu Damao stared at his big eyes and gritted his teeth, popping out a few words from between his teeth. "Silly pillar, who are you scaring? 5 yuan, I'll just pretend that this never happened. However, I have to remind you that stealing chickens is very serious, but falsely accusing others without reason can also have serious consequences." Extending a hand, He Yuzhu's hand shook in front of him. 5 yuan, the 2 chickens in his chicken coop don't add up to 5 yuan. Don't forget, the monthly living expenses of Qin Huairu's family of 5 are only 5 yuan. This money, according to the current algorithm. Qin Huairu's monthly salary is 27.5 yuan, which is 2,750 yuan when calculated at 100 times. So, these 5 yuan are about 500 yuan. Grandpa Wu Mao. Xu Damao stared at He Yuzhu with fiery eyes, wanting to eat his heart. "It's okay if I don't give it, but I can't falsely accuse it for nothing. Then you can bow to me in front of the whole hospital, apologize and apologize." He Yuzhu seemed to have not seen his murderous gaze, his expression indifferent. The general meeting of the entire court is approaching, and it is a fact that he has wrongly accused He Yuzhu. After all, roosters and hens can be distinguished at a glance. When the time comes, I really have to apologize to He Yuzhu in front of all the people in the hospital. Xu Damao is afraid that he will have to hide and walk when he sees silly Zhu in the future. He can't afford to lose this person. Think about it to this point. He angrily took out 5 yuan from his pocket and threw it onto the ground by the coal stove. "You're ruthless. If you dare to speak recklessly at the conference later, don't blame me for being impolite." After speaking, he angrily walked out of the room. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for completing the task and obtaining 20 kilograms of grain and meat tickets. Note: please claim rewards from the system repository. Listening to the wonderful prompt sound of the system, He Yuzhu's mood was incredibly wonderful. It's so satisfying to think that while others are still struggling to fill their stomachs with 3 meals a day, they can rely on system rewards to live a life without worrying about food and drink. He Yuzhu bent down to pick up the 5 yuan coin on the ground, took it in his hand and blew the dust on it. He stuffed the money into his pants pocket, and a cold smile flashed on his face. Chapter 2. 3 Weakened Elders. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There was a square table in the center of the yard, and the three gentlemen sat upright with solemn faces. The people in the courtyard were moving their own benches in groups of 3 or 2, sitting together. Suddenly notified of the meeting, the mouths of the people in the courtyard were like a bolt without a door. As you spoke, I began to mutter to myself, why is there another meeting today? I heard there was a burglary in our courtyard. Xu Damao's chicken was lost and we are looking for the chicken thief. Upon hearing these words, everyone's faces changed in shock. This is a big deal, we must investigate carefully, otherwise no one will want to live in peace in the future. Except for a few children, most of them have arrived in the courtyard. Uncle Lu Haizhong cleared his throat and stood up, saying, everyone, be quiet. Let's talk about one thing in today's meeting. Our courtyard has been burglarized. As soon as the people in the courtyard heard of the burglary, they all exploded with loud voices. The second uncle finally presided over a meeting, but before he could fully enjoy his addiction to officialdom, he was made unable to sit or stand by the noisy group of people below. Finally, I had to turn red and shout loudly, quiet, everyone, just be quiet. Today's meeting was about a topic. Xu Damao's family lost a chicken, and He Yuzhu's stove also stewed a chicken. Perhaps it was a coincidence, maybe it wasn't a coincidence. So, after analyzing with the first and third masters, we held this whole house meeting to understand the truth of the matter, not letting go of any bad people, and never wronging a good person. Now, I invite the first master to preside over the next meeting. Grandpa, Yi Zhonghai. In the courtyard, virtue is highly respected and is the embodiment of justice, firmly holding the position of a master. On weekdays, one set of great principles is applied. Behind the scenes, he is actually a hypocritical and morally kidnapping expert. Yi Zhonghai looked up at the center of the yard and said, He Yuzhu, could you explain what's going on with the chicken in your pot? He Yuzhu shook his head and loudly said, Grandpa, why do I still break the royal law when I buy a chicken? Do I need money? No money, I steal a chicken. Can you give me a reasonable explanation? A reasonable explanation, even if the master himself didn't understand what was going on, naturally he couldn't explain this matter. He glared at He Yuzhu and sat aside without speaking. Xu Damao's face was gloomy as he was tricked by He Yuzhu and lost 5 yuan. He sat there with his head down, unsure of what he was thinking. Lu Xiaoyi, who was standing beside her, became anxious and shouted, Silly Zhu, just as my chicken was lost, you stewed a chicken in your pot. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? If you didn't buy chicken earlier or later, you would be called Silly Zhu like all the people in our hospital. Everyone heard this sentence and let out a hiss. The third master pushed the highly myopic glasses on the bridge of his nose with his hand and said, Silly pillar, everyone in the hospital is watching here. Hurry up and explain what's going on with that chicken. The eyes of everyone in the courtyard fell on He Yuzhu in unison. The charge of stealing a chicken is not small. It's not really a foolish pillar, is it? It's really a matter of knowing people's faces but not their hearts. Who said no? They all live in the same courtyard. You say he's a bachelor who doesn't lack food or drink, why do he still do this sneaky thing? It's really embarrassing. I used to think he was a kind and generous person, but I didn't expect him to be unclean behind his back. In the future, I'll have to walk around when I see him. Who is Silly Zhu? The chef in the cafeteria, he is the one who needs food and drink the most in our courtyard. Whoever steals chicken, he can't steal chicken either. Do you think it might be someone else who did it? Now that we are here, touching our upper and lower lips is quite satisfying. Don't underestimate the good people. It's not him. Who is that? The Jia family is the one who needs the most food and drink in our courtyard. Do you think it might be? As soon as this sentence fell, the big guy turned his gaze to Qin Huairu. The pair of suspicious eyes stared at Qin Huairu, making her feel uneasy all over. At this moment, Grandpa Lu Haizhong stood up and said, Silly pillar, to be honest, is the chicken you stewed in the pot the same as the one lost in Xu Damao's house? Second grandpa, I don't like to hear what you're saying. Everything needs to be proven. As soon as you come up, you point fingers at me. May I ask which eye did you see me stewing, the one that Xu Damao threw? Did you? Or did you? He Yuzhu smiled and turned to look at the neighbors in the courtyard. Everyone glanced at each other and then shook their heads. The second master sat down again in anger, picked up the large teapot on the table, took a big sip, and choked until a sip of tea sprayed out again. An old man named He Zhonghai looked at the scene as it was a bit chaotic. He scanned the people in the lower courtyard and said with a stern face, He Yuzhu, be serious, talk about the chicken. The people in the yard suddenly fell silent. Only Qin Huairu was restless, and her heart was about to burst out of her throat. When we had dinner before, Bang Ji and her two younger sisters chewed on the steamed bun without swallowing a bite. She knew something was wrong, and after questioning, she found out that Xu Damao's chicken had been turned into a beggar chicken by Bang Ji and had entered the stomachs of the three children. The key point is that when Bang Gung was eating chicken, He Yuzhu happened to pass by. Although Qin Huairu had privately approached Siheyuan, he remained vague and did not make a statement. Until now, Siheyuan's attitude towards this meeting has been either obscure or light, making it difficult for her to understand. And as the party involved, Xu Damao was too quiet today. Until now, he hasn't said a word, but it was his wife Lu Xiaoyi who said a word. Qin Huairu felt as uncomfortable as a cat scratching at this moment, with a pair of watery peach blossom eyes that occasionally glanced at He Yuzhu and showed a pitiful expression. In the original drama, He Yuzhu licked his dog properly in front of Qin Huairu. Every request of Qin Huairu, whether reasonable or unreasonable, he will obey unconditionally, resolutely, and completely. Looking at Qin Huairu's beautiful widow face, He Yuzhu suddenly felt very disgusted. Just as he was about to say that he was not a chicken thief, a crisp voice suddenly came out of his mind. Ding, trigger system task. Refusing to admit to stealing chickens and leaving the three gentlemen to eat. Completing the task will earn you 20 cloth tickets, 20 pounds of hanging noodles, proficient in fitter skills. He Yuzhu gave a cold smile in his heart. You thought I was the big silly pillar who used to do everything for you. Humph, let you go for now. When the three masters are exhausted, we'll deal with you later. Grandpa 1, Grandpa 2, Grandpa 3, you don't know what kind of character I am in the courtyard. He Yuzhu's gaze swept over the gentleman and he said, I don't know what you want to do, nor do I want to know. But when you talk about the chicken in my pot, don't you mean that the chicken I stewed in my pot is the one that Xu Damao lost? I also feel a chill as I've been living in this courtyard to this extent. The chicken in my pot is here, you can see, but before looking, I only have one sentence. If this chicken is not the one lost by Xu Damao, you all have to apologize to me, He Yuzhu. Otherwise, don't look, I can't afford to lose this person. He Yuzhu stared at the three gentlemen without blinking, and confidently said. The three gentlemen were a bit overwhelmed by He Yuzhu's words. Look at me, look at you, and for a moment, they fell into a stalemate. Chapter 3. Exposing Chicken Thieves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. An old man stared at the chicken pot on the table, feeling that things were a bit difficult to handle. The second uncle who convened this meeting had an ugly face that was about to drip black water. After finally hosting a meeting, I was able to grasp what Siheyuan said. Although the aggrieved three masters did not preside over the meeting, He Yuzhu called his name in front of the whole courtyard. If Xu Damao's chicken in the pot is okay, what if it's not, Xu Damao, it was you who caused the trouble. You haven't said anything for a long time. What's going on? Is it possible that the three of us can still take the blame for you? He Zhonghai, a furious old man, roared angrily. The three gentlemen looked at Xu Damao with a displeased expression. Xu Damao, who was thinking about how to retrieve the 5 yuan money that He Yuzhu had just taken away, was suddenly frightened by this roar and almost fell off the bench. Wait for him to sit back and come back to his senses to see the crowd staring at the tiger. Three gentlemen, neighbors, I misunderstood silly pillar. The chicken in his pot is not the one I lost. After Xu Damao finished speaking, he looked at the three gentlemen with a hint of guilt and said, what I lost was an old hen, and what was cooked in the silly pillar pot was a rooster. An old man named He Yuzhu had a cold face and said in a deep voice, since it wasn't, why didn't you say it earlier? It almost caused us to misunderstand silly Zhu. Look at what you've done. Xu Damao was extremely impressed. I told you earlier, I lost him 5 yuan. What can I say? In that era, being accused and falsely accused, as well as stealing, is a serious matter. Apologize and pay a fine for minor offenses, or squat in an orange for serious offenses. First, second, and third, do you hear me clearly this time? I didn't steal the chicken. You said you didn't go catch the chicken thief, but instead stared at the chicken in my pot. Do you really think I'm a chicken thief? He Yuzhu entrusted Chu Baba to say. This time, Grandpa has spoken of suffering. When did this silly kid learn to hold back? He embarrassed us in public and even made us feel embarrassed. Silly pillar, you said you stewed a rooster in the pot. If you don't say it, we must suspect you. Aren't you asking for trouble? The second uncle was very angry, his face turning pale with anger. Second master, have you ever given me the opportunity to explain? As soon as you came up, you raised a question of guilt. Didn't you think that the chicken in my pot was the one lost by Xu Damao, and that's why you decided to hold this meeting on the spot? Seeing these two masters stirring up trouble like this and even questioning themselves, He Yuzhu responded unhappily. The second uncle was so angry that he choked for a moment and stopped speaking coldly. The third master pushed the glasses in his eyes and said slowly, silly pillar, okay, we all live in the same courtyard. Even if this matter is over, you can't really ask the three of us to apologize to you. The first and second masters nodded in agreement at the same time. Originally, He Yuzhu didn't think much of this matter, and he softened when he saw a few people. He didn't feel embarrassed to delve deeper, after all, the day was long, and He Yuzhu waved his hand, which was considered to have exposed the matter. At this moment, a wonderful electronic sound came from the ear. Ding, congratulations to the host for completing the task, obtaining 20 cloth tickets and 20 pounds of hanging noodles. Proficient in level 8 fitter skills. Seeing the reward for proficiency in level 8 fitter technology, He Yuzhu was shocked in his heart. Legendary level, National Vocational Qualification Level 1. Even the top-ranked Red Star steel rolling plant in the country has produced 3 8th-level workers. An old man He Yuzhu, but after enduring for most of his life, he barely met this standard. It is evident how difficult it is to become an 8th-level fitter. The system is so awesome. Proficient in level 8 fitter technology from the system store. The professional level operations of chiseling, filing, sawing, marking, drilling, reaming, tapping, and threading that are only possessed by senior technicians have flooded into my mind. Perfect craftsmanship. We will have another assessment at the rolling mill next time. He must register and surpass He Yuzhu. I just said that silly Zhu can't do this sneaky thing, but this time he has wronged them. Who said it's not? Before, I also thought it was unlikely for silly Zhu. If he eats alone and the whole family is not hungry, it's not a big deal to buy a chicken. Since it wasn't silly Zhu who did it, who stole Xu Damao's chicken. If we don't uncover this person, in case someone else throws something else, our courtyard won't be peaceful. No, we must uncover that despicable chicken thief. If he can steal a chicken, he can steal something else in the future. Everyone in the courtyard sighed deeply because of Xu Damao's words. Upon hearing these words in Qin Huairu's ear, it felt as if she had been pricked by a needle, with pain and itching all over her body. She looked at He Yuzhu with a pleading gaze. He Yuzhu pretended not to see. Qin Huairu, this vampire widow, tried everything possible to turn her things into her own house, salary, and he supported her family. In the end, if it weren't for Lu Xiaoyi, she almost turned him into a household. This time, Bang Gung stole a chicken, and He Yuzhu will teach this vampire widow a lesson no matter what. Ding, trigger system task. Reject Qin Huairu's request and uncover the chicken thief. Completing the task will earn 20 Great Unity tickets, 10 soap tickets, 1 warm pot ticket, 1 edible oil ticket, divine chef cooking skills. He Yuzhu chuckled in his heart. This system is simply too user-friendly. Just as I was about to teach this vampire widow a lesson, the system released this task. By the way, let me tell you something. On my way back from work, I saw Bang Gung and his 3 siblings roasting something in the open space by the roadside from a distance. The aroma drifted far away, and it smelled like a smell of meat. As for what kind of meat it is, He Yuzhu did not continue to say. At this moment, Xu Damao jumped up like a spring and walked up to Qin Huairu, shouting, "Qin Jia, quickly call your 3 children over." Upon hearing these words, Qin Huairu's courage was almost shattered. If you really called the 3 children of the stick meme, you must be explicit. She said with tears in her eyes, "Silly pillar, you bully us orphans and widows in front of so many people. What do you mean, you have to force us to a dead end, right? And you, Xu Damao, are the 3 children in our family trying to trick or provoke you. They don't understand anything. If they scare me, how can I survive? Bullying your orphans and widows. Didn't you just give me spinach and ask me to take the blame for your family's stick? Qin Huairu, I think you bullied me and got used to bullying me, right?" He Yuzhu looked heartbroken and said to Qin Huairu, "It's because our children are young that we have to teach them what to do and what not to do. Don't really do anything that shouldn't be done, and it won't be too late to regret it. So, Qin Jia, I'm doing it for you, be good to me. I think you're going to kill me." Qin Huairu didn't say anything on her face, but she already hated He Yuzhu in her heart. Chapter 4. Picked up not stolen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error, please try another translator. Chapter 5. Qin Huairu's wrongs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error, please try another translator. Chapter 6. Jia Zhang's paying money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error, please try another translator. Chapter 7. Angry stuff and shocking rain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rain, I used to distinguish right from wrong, but I won't be able to do it in the future. After all, we are a family, and remember, Qin Huairu is not your brother's dish. He Yuzhu's face was slightly cold. Today's brother made her feel a bit different. He Rainwater nodded seriously and said, "Brother, what's wrong with you and Qin Jia? It's unbelievable that you suddenly drew a line with her." He Yuzhu sighed and said, "Rainwater, not all kindness is worth treating sincerely. If it weren't for Bang Gung stealing Xu Damao's chicken today, Qin Huairu asked me to take the blame, but I refused. I still don't know that their Jia family treats my own as theirs." He Rainwater was not surprised at all and smiled calmly, "You only know. You already saw it." He Yuzhu took a sip of wine and said. He Rainwater sighed helplessly and said, "My silly brother, all your thoughts are on Qin Jia. My sister has to stand aside. What do you want me to say about her?" In fact, in her heart, it was always because her brother chose Qin Huairu that she was completely focused on matching them. Now that her brother has figured this out, she is at ease. "Well, you're right." He Yuzhu nodded. From beginning to end, he was deeply fascinated by Qin Huairu. Submit everything you should, including the house, salary, food, and so on. On the contrary, it was my younger sister who had no expectations of him. It seemed that from beginning to end, she hoped that he could get married soon and have someone to take care of him as soon as possible. It was such a simple request, but Qin Huairu held it tightly. Rainwater, don't worry, I won't be foolish again and be sucked by others in the future. He Yuzhu said and took out 10 Great Unity and 2 shopping mall tickets from the system, handing them to his sister. 10 Great Unity pieces are equivalent to her salary of over 3 months. 2 shopping mall tickets are tickets that cannot be bought with money. Brother, where did you get so much money in tickets? Rainwater looked at the 2 things in front of him, so shocked that his chin almost fell to the ground. My brother earned extra income and even gave away cooking vouchers to his superiors. He used to patronize the Jia family for relief, so he ignored you. He Yuzhu explained briefly. Rainwater reached out and pushed the money and ticket over, shaking his head. Brother, I'm not short of money. It's better for you to keep it for getting married. I'm not short of money, but it's you. You don't have any decent clothes on your body, it's all because I'm not good. Go buy some beautiful clothes and shoes to wear yourself, don't let people underestimate you. Suddenly, his brother felt heartbroken, and tears streamed down Rainwater's eyes. Look at you, why are you still crying? He Yuzhu stuffed the money and tickets on the table into his sister's hand, feeling a bit sad in his heart. I devoted myself wholeheartedly to being a licking dog in front of Qin Huairu, and even my sister treated the Jia family as her own, keeping everything for Qin Huairu. Sigh, happy, I'm just too happy. Rainwater collected the money and tickets on the table and wiped away the tears from his face. Just then, a head poked in from behind the door, with saliva still flowing from the corner of its mouth. Stick mean looking at the little head protruding, He Yuzhu gave a cold glance, but did not greet him warmly as usual. What Rainwater is on the side? He looked calmly at Bang Ji, who had come in with a bent body, but did not speak. Bang Ji didn't notice any difference and remained as usual. Smelling the aroma of chicken, I sniffed and licked my lips. My eyes fell on the table and I quickly stood in front of it, shouting, silly uncle, rainy aunt, I'm hungry. This little rabbit's nose is even sharper than a dog's, and when it smells, it runs over to ask for food and drink, not treating itself as an outsider at all. But today this chicken was already eaten by Rainwater. There is only a little soup left, still emitting a tempting aroma. If you're hungry, go back to find your mother. I don't have anything you want to eat here. He Yuzhu chuckled. Silly uncle, isn't there still soup in this pot? I want to drink it. Bang Ji poked his head into the chicken pot and said with a smile. Speaking without caring about the 2 people next to him, he picked up the pot and had to deliver it to his mouth. He Yuzhu pressed down the pot and pointed in the direction of the door, Stick, you go out. He Yuzhu doesn't have a good mood when it comes to treating children like Bongang. This child has been completely corrupted by Jia Zhang's teachings, without any upbringing. Silly uncle, calling is quite annoying. Humph, I'm going to drink it. How can you drip it? Bang Ji tightly wrapped his hands around the chicken pot, but he didn't let go. He is now like the way Jia Zhang was when he was throwing tantrums, reckless and unreasonable. Stick, put it down. Rainwater suddenly raised his eyebrows and said coldly. Since my brother clearly expressed his attitude towards the Jia family just now. Rainwater also had serious dissatisfaction with the Jia family's actions. After all, she and her brother are the same family. To put it simply, the Jia family is a neighbor. Helping is a matter of affection, and not helping is not an obligation. Moreover, this family is completely ignorant and only knows how to exploit her brother all day long. Bang Ji seemed to have heard something incredible and suddenly shouted, Rainwater aunt, why did you make me let go? This is my silly uncle's house. Rainwater was infuriated and laughed at the stick meme. This is his silly uncle's house. Together, I became an outsider. It seems that my brother was right to draw a clear line with the Jia family. There should be no mercy in dealing with such a family. This is also my home. What are you Jia's family? They're just my brother's neighbors. I don't care, silly uncle. If you dare to drive me away, I'll tell my mom when you turn around and bully me. Bang Ji didn't even think about it and said domineeringly. He even a child knows to take his mother, Qin Huairu threatens him. It can be imagined how unbearable he was once in front of Qin Huairu. Stick meme, not only is there nothing to eat today, but there will also be nothing left in the future. Moreover, my home is not your home, and if I find out that you come to my house to pick up something again, I will not let it go lightly, He Yuzhu said coldly. Taking the chicken pot from Bang Gung's hand, He Yuzhu poured the remaining soup from the pot in front of him. At this moment, Bada finally realized something was wrong. Watching the fragrant chicken soup slowly dissipate in the air, he got up in anger and slammed the door away. Brother, I didn't expect this meme to be really a white-eyed wolf. Just now, Bang Ji's words deeply stimulated her. She thought about her brother dedicating everything to the Jia family, but Bang Ji turned his face and didn't recognize anyone because he took a bite. He was so angry that he slammed the door and left. Rainwater shook his head with emotion. He stood up and closed the door again. He Yuzhu returned to the table and sat down, smiling calmly. So your brother needs to turn back and come ashore. Jia family. Bang Gung ran home and angrily recounted how He Yuzhu had treated him and how Rainwater had assisted him, adding fuel and vinegar. What kind of fool is he? He dares to bully our family's memes. No way, I have to come to him to argue. It's all about bullying a child. Jia Zhang felt sorry for her grandson and opened her mouth in the room, cursing loudly. Chapter 8. The Object of Silly Pillar and Qin Jingru. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just now, Jia Zhang smelled the aroma of chicken wafting from He Yuzhu's house from a long distance. It made her old throat and she swallowed saliva several times. Glancing at his daughter law Qin Huairu, Jia Zhang's mouth was about to open. Qin Huairu saw her mother law's plan and immediately rejected it in one breath. So Jia Zhang once again turned his mind to his grandson, Banggang. It has been some time since dinner time. The chicken that the three children ate in their mouths was already digested almost completely. Especially with the stick stem, which has strong digestive ability, when I smell the fragrance floating outside the hospital again, my stomach starts to growl again. Upon hearing the sound, Jia Zhang chuckled and encouraged Bang Ji to go to He Yuzhu's house. Unexpectedly, Bang Gung enthusiastically went to He Yuzhu's house. Not only did he not receive the expected welcome. Unexpectedly, He Yuzhu poured all the remaining chicken soup in front of the stick. Mom, don't make things worse. Didn't you see it in today's meeting? Silly pillar is not the same foolish pillar as before. If you come knocking on your door again, maybe the foolish pillar will completely draw a line with us. Qin Huairu frowned and said. She was really wrong today. He Yuzhu has repeatedly made her feel embarrassed, leaving her still somewhat confused. Could it be that this guy is talking about another girlfriend and is going to dump himself? Suddenly thinking of this, Qin Huairu felt a bit flustered in her heart. No, we need to find a way to keep this long-term meal ticket. There are still some days before the salary is paid, so we cannot let He Yuzhu have any crooked thoughts. A few days ago, she was planning to introduce her cousin Qin Jingru to Silly Zhu. Tomorrow happens to be a movie in the courtyard, and when she comes over, I have to remind her cousin to take Silly Zhu away as soon as possible. Jia Zhang was also aware of the seriousness of the matter when Qin Huairu said so. If there were no foolish pillars to support their family, they would probably only have a chance to drink from the west and north. So, whoever offends in this courtyard cannot offend the foolish pillar. The 5 yuan lost today, she will have to recover it from Silly Pillar next time. In the blink of an eye, Jia Zhang adjusted her mood. The courtyard in the early morning. Extremely lively. Wash your face, brush your teeth, pour the night pot, you come and go, everyone comes and goes. He Yuzhu, who was used to living in the building, was suddenly awakened by the bustling life in the courtyard. He was a bit uncomfortable and leaned his head out of bed, blinking a few times with slightly sleepy eyes. He Yuzhu finally realized that his new life in the courtyard had begun. Opening the warm blanket, I stretched lazily and looked at the busy people outside the window. Wash up, lock the doors and windows, tie the scarf, hold the lunchbox and cloth bag, and He Yuzhu hums a tune to go to work. Now with the system's divine assistance, I'm afraid the landlord's granary may not be as abundant. Watching the tickets lying quietly in the system, one by one, the great unity He Yuzhu seemed to see a beautiful life beckoning to him. Today at the steel rolling mill, there is an outdoor movie. Qin Huairu takes this opportunity to introduce her cousin Qin Jingru to He Yuzhu. However, in the drama, Xu Damao is secretly causing trouble by portraying He Yuzhu as a person in front of Qin Jingru. Qin Jingru, who had just entered the city, did not know that this was Xu Damao's scheme and instead regarded He Yuzhu as a villain inferior to beasts. So, this time, He Yuzhu had to expose Xu Damao's old ways, causing him to return disappointed. The cafeteria of the steel rolling mill. The knife that He Yuzhu used to cut vegetables was fluttering on the chopping board, brushing and brushing, as if dancing a cheerful dance song. Ma Hua's mood flew with him as he watched. He approached and said, "Master, you cut this dish well today. It seems that something good has happened." "Today is a good day," said He Yuzhu with a faint smile as he continued to cut vegetables. "Qin Jia said she wants to introduce me to a particularly lively cousin. Master, if this is done, I will have a master's wife. Hurry up and let Qin introduce me to a beautiful girl. I can't let my apprentice stay single." Ma Hua scratched his head, holding a potato in his hand and chuckled. He Yuzhu held a knife in one hand and gave him a fierce blow on the head with the other. "You kid, you haven't even paid attention to your master's affairs. You're really thinking about it. You're good at learning math abacus. Master, who are you? As soon as you make a move, I have to prepare to eat candy." Ma Hua's flattery-like smile shone brightly, and hearing He Yuzhu, his heart felt a pang of sourness. "Let's not say whether or not to take it, at least we can't let Xu Damao, the grandson, ruin his image when he meets him, and make his beautiful daughter feel like a scammer." As the time for the movie was almost up, He Yuzhu became the shopkeeper again. Taking off his white chef uniform, he said to his disciple beside him, "I've done almost everything here. You can finish the rest and I'll go meet someone." Ma Hua chuckled and said, "All right, master, hurry up and bring my master back. I promise to do the rest of the work beautifully for you." I made a simple adjustment and sprinkled some water on my head. Feeling like that, He Yuzhu finally walked out of the cafeteria under the attention of Ma Hua. In order to prevent Xu Damao from coming into contact with Qin Jingru in advance, He Yuzhu arrived a few minutes early and walked to the place where the movie was being screened. He scanned around and didn't notice Qin Huairu and her cousin Qin Jingru. Instead, he saw Xu Damao there, his eyes wandering left and right, tinkering with the film on the projector. Not long. Qin Huairu walked over with a beautiful girl wearing a bright red coat. Ding, trigger system task. Stop Xu Damao from deceiving and intercept Qin Jingru. Obtain task rewards, a set of kitchen god-level tools, a set of god-level dietary therapy recipes, and a god-level brewing recipe. He Yuzhu, who has already obtained the culinary skills of the kitchen god, was shocked by the powerful rewards from the system. If he didn't have the job of a cafeteria in the future, he would be able to live a prosperous life just by relying on the system's rewards, leaving people with only envy, jealousy, and hatred. As soon as she saw He Yuzhu, Qin Huairu quickly waved. It seems like the incident of the stick meme stealing a chicken yesterday has never happened. He Yuzhu approached and approached. Not to mention Qin Huairu's cousin, she needs to have a certain appearance. She has big almond eyes that are watery and pleasing to the eye. However, this outfit she wore a red cotton jacket on her upper body, a green scarf on her neck, blue cotton pants on her lower body, and a pair of handcrafted double-layer black cotton shoes, dressed appropriately as a rural girl. He Yuzhu walked forward with a smile and said, "Qin Jia, your cousin is really handsome." Qin Huairu glanced at He Yuzhu and then took his cousin's hand to introduce him. "Jingru, he is what I told you about He Yuzhu. He is the head chef of the steel rolling mill cafeteria in our courtyard." Looking up at the smiling man in front of her, Jingru blushed and whispered softly, "He. Comrade He, hello." He Yuzhu was amused by the innocent appearance of the girl in front of him, and he also learned from her, saying, "Comrade Qin, you are also good." Watching the way the two greeted each other, Qin Huairu, who was standing next to her, covered her mouth and smiled, exclaiming in her heart, "These two are really a perfect match." Chapter 9. Picking Up a Girl, Xu Damao Troubles. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. With a sincere and honest appearance, Jingru appeared to be someone who could hurt her wife. In her heart, she suddenly developed a certain liking for the man introduced by her cousin. She has always been envious of her cousin marrying into the city. Working in the factory without wind or rain, eating commodity grains, receiving monthly wages, it's quite easy to buy anything. Unlike her, who works on the ground in the wind and sun every day, with her face facing the yellow soil and back facing the sky, she can't lose 2 statures even after working for a year. So, the more she looked at He Yuzhu, the more she liked him. Jingru, who had ideas in her heart, didn't hold on to it anymore. Whether or not one can enter the city depends on whether the man in front of them is willing to marry themselves. Before the three of them could sit down, Jingru blushed and crossed over to Qin Huairu in the middle. She took the initiative to sit next to He Yuzhu and separated Qin Huairu to the side. At this moment, Qin Huairu's face looked a bit ugly. Jingru didn't notice her cousin's expression at the moment. She tightly gripped one side of her clothes with both hands, lowered her head with a slight tremolo, and said, "Brother Zhu, I believe my cousin has already told you about my situation. I don't have any other requirements, I just want to marry into the city." He Yuzhu saw Qin Huairu, whose face had changed, calmly looked at Jingru and smiled slightly. I know. This girl surprised him a bit today. Upon hearing the conversation between the two, Qin Huairu sitting next to her felt as if she had knocked over a jar of jealousy. He Yuzhu was originally the man she had chosen, but her arrogant and domineering mother-in-law, Jia Zhang, looked at her to death and did not give her any chance. She is a widow, 3 children, and a mother-in-law. Even if she wanted to pierce through this layer of window paper, she couldn't pull down her face. After pondering for a long time, she thought of her cousin Jingru. At least they are relatives, but in the future, they will have to take care of themselves as aunties. Not to let the whole family suffer from hunger and cold. The 3 of them were each eating melon seeds with their own thoughts in mind. Xu Damao's eyes kept twirling and he had already seen these 3 people. He suddenly ran over and looked at the girl, saying to He Yuzhu, "Silly pillar, who is this beautiful girl?" He Yuzhu knew that this guy came here to cause damage, but he didn't expose him. He spat out a melon seed shell on him and said coldly, "Sun Tzu, you married man, don't eat from the bowl and look at the pot. Can you control who the girl is?" After speaking, he stood up and stood in front of Jingru, kicking her with one foot. Xu Damao's face immediately turned black and he dodged a kick from He Yuzhu on his side. After looking at the beautiful woman in front of him, he leaned into He Yuzhu's ear and gritted his teeth, snorting, "Silly Zhu, you wait for me." After speaking, he quickly stepped back to the side and said to the 3 people in front of him with a smile on his face, very gentlemanly, "I'm going to show a movie. You guys keep talking." As soon as he turned around, Xu Damao's face turned cold. "You silly pillar, since you are not kind, don't blame me for my injustice. You made me lose face in front of beautiful women today, and tomorrow I will let you boast." He Yuzhu has just made it clear what needs to be said. If this girl were any fool, she wouldn't have been deceived by a married man named Xu Damao. He Yuzhu sneaked out during work hours and after chatting with the 2 of them briefly, he said to Qin Jingru, "Jingru girl, I still have a job in the cafeteria and can't spend more time with you. I'll come back to see you after work." Qin Jingru nodded shyly. It wasn't until He Yuzhu's figure disappeared from sight that she finally turned around. Qin Huairu glanced at her cousin next to her, with a look of dementia on her face, and smiled. "Jingru, you're really interested." Although Qin Jingru is a rural girl, she also has her own ideas and ideas. She blinked her eyes twice and said softly, "You can go anywhere. Silly Zhu is a foolish person, but he knows how to get by. You need to hurry up a bit." Qin Huairu sighed in her heart, using a double tone and saying it softly. "Fat and water do not flow into the fields of outsiders. Since I am no longer in the game, I am also a meritorious minister in facilitating the relationship between Silly Zhu and Jingru. As a matchmaker and cousin, I will have to take care of the Jia family more in the future." "Sister, isn't his name He Yuzhu? Why don't you all call him Silly Zhu instead of his name?" Qin Jingru asked puzzled. "But in my heart, I was wondering if this person was just a fool. She has skills, and she's still a chef in the cafeteria," Qin Huairu said with a smile. Suddenly, she seemed to understand something and patted her cousin's shoulder with one hand. "You dead girl, what kind of person do you think your cousin is? Do you really think I introduced you to a fool?" Qin Jingru chuckled and said, "Who made you all shout like that?" The two of them were fighting and frolicking, chatting and laughing, watching the movie and smashing sunflower seeds until the scene ended. Walk through the streets and alleys. He Yuzhu walked briskly home, carrying an aluminum lunchbox. As I was walking, suddenly there was a rustling sound of footsteps behind me. Turning around and looking back, I saw a girl wearing red clothes and pants closely following not far behind. Wearing a red hood on her head, she pressed down her ear-length short hair tightly, covering half of her face. She carried a unique small cloth bag on her back and stood there quietly. "Are you a ghost or a human?" The whole alley was quiet, just the two of them. Although it was almost time before the night fell, under the dim light and shadow, the girl was dressed in red clothes and pants, which was astonishing. He Yuzhu was startled and opened his eyes twice, cautiously asking, "Ghost, this word is a bit scary." The girl looked at He Yuzhu, blinked twice, but didn't speak. He Yuzhu realized there was something wrong with his words and turned to say, "Girl, who are you?" The girl extended a palm and said in a pleasant voice, "Five girls. Is there anyone with this surname among the 100 surnames?" He Yuzhu was a bit confused by the girl's words. The girl blinked her eyes again. This girl can't speak, and she's also alone. Maybe she's lost. He Yuzhu frowned and continued, Five girls, where are you going?" 5 girls looked up at the front, pointed straight with their hands, and then turned a corner. Following the direction of her fingers, He Yuzhu looked over and now he understood. He said, "So you're going to our hospital, so it's just a good way." The girl nodded lightly, revealing half of her lips and creating a graceful curve. "It's very moving." The two walked in the alley, one in front and one behind, and soon arrived at the entrance of the courtyard. He Yuzhu stood at the entrance of the courtyard and turned to ask, "Miss Wu, where are you going?" Miss Wu blinked her eyes, didn't speak, and pointed at him. He Yuzhu was stunned and said, "You go to my house, girl. Don't be joking." 5 girls nodded heavily and even pulled up the hem of his clothes. Chapter 10. Xu Damao says about his beasts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He Yuzhu suddenly recalled the scene when he met the girl. Not much to say, and her brain circuits are also very strange. The key is that she is going home with a stranger of her own now. If she encounters someone with malicious intentions, her life will be ruined. Perhaps this girl has a brain problem. As soon as he thought of this, He Yuzhu felt that all of this made sense. He was about to hesitate on how to give the girl a reasonable explanation. Suddenly, seeing the corner of the alley, a familiar figure quickly walked over and was about to come closer. Without saying a word, He Yuzhu picked up the girl's hand and walked towards his own room. That familiar figure was none other than that bastard Xu Damao. If this girl were to be targeted by that bastard, she wouldn't be good. If this girl were to be fooled by that grandson, he would really have a guilty conscience. Just as he led the girl into the house, Xu Damao followed him from behind. "Silly Zhu, why are you running? Also, who is this girl?" Xu Damao, who was worried about not finding He Yuzhu's handle, pulled the door and was about to break into the house. "Sun Tzu, what do you want?" He Yuzhu blocked the door with his body and leaned out half of his head, saying, "You just went on a blind date with Qin Huairu's cousin today, and now you're bringing back another girl. I want to ask you, what are you really thinking?" Xu Damao spoke confidently. "It's time to cook now, so the yard is much quieter than usual. Otherwise, with their actions, the whole yard would definitely be stirred up. Xu Damao, do you think everyone is like you, using their lower bodies to think about problems? Tell me about you. She's a little girl, isn't your thinking too wild?" Encountering such a person, He Yuzhu had nothing to say and responded coldly. "I am a beast." As soon as Xu Damao said these 3 words, he was startled by the half-face that appeared behind He Yuzhu. "The following words were instantly swallowed back into my throat, and then I left without saying a word. When did this grandson change his personality?" He Yuzhu also felt a bit strange. After seeing that half of his face, Xu Damao's heart stirred up layers of ripples. Wonderful in the world. He lived for over 30 years, the first time he saw a girl who could look so beautiful. At this moment, he felt that He Yuzhu was absolutely right. If you continue to say this, it will be a desecration of the girl in the room, it's a bit of a beast. Moreover, when the girl blinked at him, he felt his heart tremble. He Yuzhu smiled and shook his head, turned around and returned to the room, and then he was startled. Just now in the alley, due to the dim light and her ear-length short hair covering half of her face, he didn't even see the girl's appearance clearly. Nowadays, the light is bright. A half-face detached from the mundane world appeared in front of him, feeling as if he was dreaming. He Yuzhu smiled self-deprecatingly. "I said how Xu Damao managed to run away on his own just now. It turned out that it was not his stunning charm, but rather that he was taken away by the girl's appearance." A gurgling sound suddenly sounded. He Yuzhu smiled and took out the dishes from his lunchbox. He heated them up on the coal stove and then took out 2 white steamed buns to steam. The meal was served to the table, and the 5 girls wolfed it down. 3 times, 5 times, 2 out of 2, a box of vegetables, 2 steamed buns in an instant. After finishing her meal, she stared at He Yuzhu with a very innocent gaze, then looked at the empty bowl in front of her. "I'm not full," He Yuzhu said with a smile. Miss Wu nodded. "Okay, you wait, I'll give you another bowl of noodles." Fortunately, the avian abuse counterattack system is very user-friendly, and the tickets inside can be directly retrieved or exchanged, without the need to go to the mall or shop to redeem them. He Yuzhu turned around and took some ingredients from the system. He boiled noodles in a wok, stir-fried meat sauce, and quickly made a large bowl of hot and steaming old Beijing-style mixed sauce noodles. Delicious food in the world. 5 girls picked up the bowl, placed it on their small cheong nose, and sniffed it, extending 4 fingers. After speaking, she pressed her whole face into the bowl and began to eat with a snoring sound. After finishing this bowl of noodles, there was a hint of unfinished satisfaction on her delicate little face. He lowered his head and touched his belly, showing a playful smile as he looked at He Yuzhu. "Don't eat too much delicious food at once, otherwise it can easily cause bloating and indigestion." He Yuzhu spoke in a gentle tone, as if afraid of startling this 5th girl. Siheyuan, Jia family. On the table are congee boiled with clear water and several hard wormholes. Bang Yu took Wauatu with one hand and congee in the bowl with the other hand. he said with a look of disgust. Mom, why is Wautu again? It's too hard for me to digest. Go to see if my stupid uncle has returned. Qin Jingru looked at the kanji and Wautu on the table, and immediately lost the mood to eat. The days at my cousin's house are not as good as she imagined. Even her living standards in the countryside are not comparable. Thinking of this, she hesitated a bit about the city life. I don't know how the living standards of He Yuzhu's family are either. If she had been eating with him all day, she might as well not marry into the city. Wow, it smells so good. Mom, where did the fragrance come from? As the whole room was eating with a worried expression on its face, the sudden aroma of meat wafted from outside, causing Bang Ji to take several breaths of air. It's the taste of Uncle Silly's house. Xiao Dang and Huaihua shouted in unison. Only He Yuzhu's house is closest to theirs, and the smell wafts out, first arriving at Jia's house. This has formed a consensus among the Jia family. Familiar taste, familiar He Yuzhu's family. This silly pillar is really amazing. I don't even know if I bring back the meat. Bring it over and let me taste it first. Jia Zhang's tone was eerie, and she didn't smell as if staring at the nest in her hand. Mom, go ahead. Bring all the meat from Uncle Silly's house. The head of the stick meme couldn't hold back and threw away the clump in his hand, shouting. Qin Huairu glanced outside the window and frowned. I was kicked out yesterday and haven't received a lesson yet, haven't I? Qin Jingru observes the nose with her eyes and the heart with her nose. Watching my cousin's family's performance silently, I felt contemptuous in my heart. What does my cousin's family say? Bring the meat over. The things in the silly Zhu family are just like those in their family. How can one be such a person? No, I have to remind Brother Zhu not to be too kind. If I were to marry Brother Zhu tomorrow, with my cousin's family and a group of vampires around, my life would definitely be difficult. Jingru, why don't you go over there? Qin Huairu suddenly said. She looked out the window and pointed diagonally to the house with the light on diagonally opposite. Okay. Qin Jingru immediately responded. Dong dong dong. In 3 or 2 steps, he walked to the door, lifted the curtain outside, and knocked on the door. Is Brother Zhu at home? Upon hearing the voice of the girl outside, He Yuzhu suddenly patted his head and remembered the agreement he had made with Qin Jingru after work. Glancing at the 5 girls in the room, he said inside, Miss Jingru, please wait for me for 2 minutes and I'll come out right away.